Welcome to Reality NSFW's coverage of Big Brother Canada's 10. This is the second episode and our first of many things. First HOH nominations, first veto, first eviction, all in an hour. I am your host, Alex Rubino, and more importantly, I have a great guest joining me. All the way back from season 1 of Big Brother Canada, which was referenced many times tonight. Joining me is the one and only Peter Brown. Peter, how are you?
I am great, man. Thank you so much for having me. It has definitely been a week of firsts, and I was the first to do a lot of things in the Big Brother Canada house, so I'm very happy to be talking about it here now, 10 years later, if you can believe that.
Does it feel like 10 years for you?
No, absolutely not. It feels more like 5-ish, I would say. It is weird, though, like on the premiere night to see 9 seasons of highlights and flashbacks of people who have become my friends over a long time. Big Brother Canada is very unique in the global Big Brother world in that we are oddly close as a collective. There are 155 of us now, and I'd like to consider them all friends in one way or another. So now that we have a whole new group in there, it's I don't know. It's some of them in the house right now weren't even old enough to play when I played, so it's real weird. But hey, it's always fun to see a new group inside the house.
Yeah, new group, new opportunity for you to make friends and maybe some enemies.
Always enemies.
You never know. But let's just get started. So we have the good old previously on, and I always miss our BB Can announcer guy. So it was nice to have him back. First thing he says is things got lit, which just gave me an eye roll. Just then I'm like, oh, we're doing there. And I like the way like BBUS always likes to give us a little intro of like who the people are. Well, it's like, oh, you've got the nerd, the jock, whatever. BB Can likes to describe them a little bit more, at least in this case. We have the icebreaker from BC and Helena, the theater director with a flair for the dramatic in Jay, Moose, who's just a party animal, and then a brand new car salesman in Herman, which I found that interesting. I was like, okay. But then the whole episode is Herman making salesman jokes in the DR, and like, okay. And then all we got is that Jay is safe from answering the phone, and then Moose and Josh were safe from the comp, and then Herman is our HOH. That's all we had to go off of.
Yeah, it was a. I think the first episode in any Big Brother season should always be at least 90 minutes, but probably 2 hours.
I agree.
Because it takes a half an hour just to introduce them all and get them in the house. And even then it feels compact. There's so much energy. There's so much excitement. Everyone's in that like first date mode. You've just arrived at the greatest party of your life sort of thing. And it gets clipped a lot to only the bare essentials. And then you go right into a competition and then you're off until the next night. And you don't really get to meet a lot of the people. Like I always feel so badly for the individual that gets evicted in the first week because they don't really get a whole lot of TV time, but they're living it 24/7 in there. So I don't know. I wish that there was some more time to breathe in these episodes because it's all just boom, 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 go, go, go.
I completely agree with you. And the first episode like felt a little bit rushed, but it was like, all right, I at least know a little bit about these people. Can I like get everyone's name right off the bat? Maybe probably not, but I know a decent amount of the big characters. And then we get the HOH, and HOH I thought was cool. But this episode just felt like bang, 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 bang. And I'm like, it was everything that I don't like in Big Brother.
Right.
I want to see people talking, seeing gaming, and it's like, all right, we'll start. Okay, we have like one conversation after the HOH. Oh, he's nominating people. Oh, okay. I guess Jess and Melina make sense. All right. Oh, Jess and Melina are sad. Okay, Veto. Let's go to Veto. Oh, great. Right. Noms. What? Melina's gone. Great. See ya.
It definitely felt more like you were watching in what would have been an abridged highlights only version of what normally would be a much fuller episode. Yeah. That's the problem when you're trying to fit 6 days into essentially 40 odd minutes of television. It's extraordinarily difficult to do, which is why I think there, obviously should be more time. But it's the first person out gets a really raw deal because everything is just so tight, and it doesn't allow for that organic, for the viewer to kind of watch it and go like, ooh, maybe this person's in trouble. Let's see what they do next. Maybe this conversation will change their path a little bit. It's like exactly as you said. It's no, this happens and then this, and then it leads directly to this, and then we go home. So that's a first week issue for sure. Generally speaking, if someone is new to Big Brother and they think that's always how it is, generally speaking, that is not true. I think you'll see more room to breathe next week as they have a lot more time because they can condense the next 7 days into 3 episodes instead of essentially 1.
Yeah. It's so interesting. This is one of the seasons where I didn't do a ton of like preseason cast reading. I looked at the cast, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go in a little bit blind, and also was just busy with stuff. And now I'm like, maybe I see why I normally like to read in depth about the cast, because I'm like, I like to think of myself as a pretty big fan. I like to think I'm paying attention. I took a bunch of notes on this episode, and I'm still like, wait, who's that again?
Right.
Have we not seen somebody? And then, like, for example, when it was time to vote, oh, Betty's there. I was like, oh yeah, Betty's there. Forgot about her.
I kind of did the same thing, to be honest. I wanted to react organically in the moment. So I only saw the headshots and their names. That's it.
Yeah.
I didn't watch the videos. Same. I didn't read anything about them. I almost wish that Big Brother Canada would do sort of actually Big Brother USA Over the Top did this, but the old UK style of doing a live launch and putting them all in real time. So you kind of get to meet them. You really get to know them as they enter the house. Again, this is a more premiere talk, but it is because even in the premiere, their videos were apparently like they didn't show the totality of it. Like apparently Kyle references the infamous Twitter event from last year when people thought that he was the Kyle going into Big Brother Canada 9 house, but that's not in the episode. So there are even things cut out of their bio packs that are on the website that didn't make the episode. So right now, I only know as much as what I've seen on the show, and there are definitely a lot of invisible characters at this point.
It's so interesting. I agree with you there, and I get why they wanted to get rid of the Kyle thing, for example, because a lot of the people who are just watching the show are not going to be watching feeds. They're not going to be listening to a podcast. They're not going to be talking about it much. So it's like, oh, let's explain Twitter trends to them. That's not going to work. But there are some things. It was like, just like, okay, what do I know about anybody? Nothing.
Not much.
And that's all I like. This game involves real people, but I feel like so far it's just like chess pieces because I don't know anybody. I have no attachment to anybody. It was like, I think I want Melina to stay, but I'm like, I don't know much about her. I guess I don't want Kevin to go either. I don't want Justin. It's like, I want to feel something about someone, and I've got nothing yet. And it's just annoying.
Those are not the kind of vague, nondescript reactions you want to have for characters who have been living and breathing and stressing out for 6 full days in there. You want to have at least some kind of sense of how they're feeling and how that should maybe impact you as a viewer. One thing in the United States that they used to do that I don't think they've ever done in Canada, but Julie would always refer to the person initially like with their what their job title was. They'd be like, and Will, the dermatologist from wherever California, like it was, they always kind of prefaced it with, this is their job, or the student from Los Angeles, whatever. They stopped doing that somewhere along the way, and she would just refer to the name. But to me, that was always kind of a way to frame them as like, oh, this is the private investigator. This is the chef. This is whatever. And it gives you some kind of like, okay, well, I know what a chef is, and I have a general sense of what chefs are kind of like. So I can at least attach that to this person that maybe I don't know a ton about, and then I'll learn along the way. they don't really do that. As you said at the beginning of the episode, they're like the whatever person from BC and the car dealer. Okay, well, I know what a car dealer is. So they kind of do it, but it was only for like 3 or 4 people. You didn't have Arissa kind of being like, okay, here's Jess. She's the something from somewhere, and she's in trouble, or they're in trouble. My bad.
Can you tell me what anybody besides Herman does for a living? Right?
No, I cannot.
No. Like, one of them I think is a social worker, but I don't remember who. And like Betty is maybe a banker. I don't remember.
Couldn't tell you.
I tried, but all right, let's dive into this.
That's important though. I think that's a good point. Is that if you're not going to be able to, you're dealing with limited time, so you have to get the story across. Who are the most important characters, especially in a limited time frame. So it obviously people are going to get left on the cutting room floor, but to at least give a little bit of context to who they are, I think would be helpful for the average viewer. There is the bulk of the audience are the quote casuals. And a lot of people on the internet are very dismissive of the casuals because they're the hardest of hardcore, and they're engaging with the feeds, and they're in the hashtag thread, and they're watching the podcast, and they're just devouring every moment of it. But that's like less than 5% of the audience probably. And so you have to kind of remember, they're telling a story as broadly as possible. And sometimes that can be frustrating.
Yep. I'm seeing some comments in the chat mentioning that Josh is a pediatrician and Gino's a firefighter. Thank you for the reminders.
Lovely.
Like now I'm seeing it again. I'm like, oh yeah, Gino's a firefighter because he takes his shirt off all the time.
Exactly.
Josh,
it gives you some kind of insight into like the type of behavior that they might be exhibiting in the house and where they might be coming from culturally or professionally.
And it's something, not to compare it to the US again, because usually I'll say that Canada's better than the US in a lot of ways. What I wish they would do is wait a week for the first eviction. In the US, we'll do this sometimes, where we'll do like a 2-night premiere and actually premiere the season. And by the end of it, we have HOH and noms, which I'd be fine with. And then we have 3 slower episodes, however you want to split it. I get 5 episodes is maybe tough to make, even if we just did one episode this week and then 3 next week. Like, use the premiere, maybe give us an hour and a half if you can, if not even an hour, whatever, just on introducing the people, just on getting to know them, seeing their interactions, and then we can go about the week with like Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then see someone go. I also want to see feeds of these people. Like,
you never ever get week 1 feeds in Canada.
No, I know. I'm just shouting to the rooftops for no one, because all I know is me. Like in the US for Survivor, there's no shot anyone listens to this. BB Can, there's a small shot maybe because you're here, Peter, that Arissa listen to this. I doubt it's her call. I doubt it's her call because I know who the fan she is, and I know she probably wants week 1 feeds too.
Arissa is definitely a gigantic fan, a legitimate gigantic fan of the show. I can remember back in the sideshow days, I would get texts from Arissa at 2:00 in the morning being like, hey, oh my gosh, did you see what just happened on the feed? She's that kind of fan. She's legitimately invested in it. And I know that she always pushes to do as much fan-friendly things as possible because she's a hardcore too. And she understands that perspective. But there's a lot of moving pieces and parts in network television that aren't easy to shuffle around. And the benefit in the United States is, their week 1 is actually like a week and a half or 2 weeks. That they call it week 1 in the house, but they're there anywhere from like 9 to 14 or 13 or 14 total days before they have an eviction. And that's what allows them to have the luxury of having that introduction and then kind of a week of, getting to know people and developing the social interactions and the alliances and things of that nature. But Canada, when you go in, it starts and that's it. I've always been under the, I always think that, if I were running a Big Brother game, I would put them in there for anywhere from 5 to 7 days right off the top where nothing happens. Like you just go in and it's you have like, here, be social, interact with the people, develop alliances and strategies with no power in play, with no secrets, no twists. You're just a bunch of people in a magic box trying to coexist. And then because the social hierarchy of the house will always develop very quickly.
100%.
Always. Just you put a bunch of extroverts in that type of environment. Anyone that would want to go in there has got to be a little bit loopy in the first place. And I say that with only love. But you put a bunch of people in that environment and things will naturally kind of form in a certain way. And so if you just give people the time to be people without the quote game, the more obvious elements of the game, the powers and the twists and so on and so forth, competitions, then I think you would see a lot more emotional backlash once that stuff starts to, become introduced. Maybe a week is too long. I don't know. Maybe it's only 3 days. Maybe it's 2. I don't know. But just throw them in there. I think that would kind of be interesting to have their headspace be, okay, well, when is it going to start? Because the true players will know that it starts the second you walk through the door, whether there's a competition or a power or whatever in place anyway. So, and that's unfortunately a lesson that a lot of Big Brother house guests have learned over the years. You'll often see people being like, okay, it's game on in week 3 when they get nominated, and they're starting to play in week 3 when everyone or most everyone else started to play the second they walk through the door. So seeing how people adapt and develop to the environment is always interesting for me.
I mean, there are a couple people who don't even realize the game is going on until the end of the game.
Right.
But
true. Very true.
Even with that, I'm with you. I would love to see something where you throw them in the house. I would maybe say 3 days. I think 3 is a good 3, maybe 4. However you can work the schedule. I mean, because you can edit it down anyway. I would love to see something like that, and I would love feeds for it, but I know I'm never getting that.
Right.
I could dream. And yeah, I mean, we got a little bit more here. We at least seeing in the chat. We got diary room sessions. We got a little bit, even if some of them were really force fed and garbage. We got something. But again, it's like I feel so bad for Melina. We know nothing about her, and she's gone. And
I liked Melina when I saw her biopack, because I felt it was very similar to mine in a lot of ways. Because my biopack is a large part of it is just me listing the things that I don't like, and that was a big part of her personality. So I think our character presentations were intended to be at least somewhat similar. Obviously, I'm in the diary room a lot louder and more boisterous and television-y, I guess, because I have experience in that world. But I think just being the kind of like self-professed people hater character is something, is a cross-section that she and I would both belong to. And so I was rooting for her. I was like, okay, here, like, it's really hard to be someone who's like, you know what, I don't love interacting with people all the time, and then going into an environment in which the central preoccupation is interacting with people. And a skilled Big Brother player will realize their strengths and their weaknesses and try to downplay their weaknesses and emphasize their strengths.
Absolutely.
So if she knew going in that, like, hey, I'm not always the life of the party, and I'm not always in the popular circle, and I it might take me a little while to become comfortable with someone. All these types of things absolutely would have applied to me as well. And I focused on that so hard before I went in to make sure that, like, okay, I have to make these people like me. I have to make sure that they at least want to keep me around and be friendly with me. Like, even if I'm not their best friend, I at least have to be friendly enough so that they regard me in a positive light. And it's harder to do if you're, an introvert, and it's not an easy thing to do in that kind of environment, especially if you don't click with like one person right off the bat. Like, I'm always so fortunate that Alec and I clicked immediately, like literally became best friends the second we met. And so that really, I think, helped both of us. And it was, she didn't have that one person that she could kind of like gravitate towards and, be the best friend, and then use that as a launch point for everyone else. So yeah, I was very disappointed to see her go, for sure.
Yeah, her, and I thought a lot about Kevin. Kevin, in terms of trying to be you, I think he was failing at it,
Yeah.
but I was like, "Oh, you're another one just trying to be the Peter Brown, just trying to, like, I will hate everyone." And I get that. Like, I'd probably play like a little bit like a villain. I don't think I'd be saying, "Oh, I'm gonna send everyone's favorites home," but just think the way I would play, like playing a little bit aggressively, could make me a villain. But I
Yeah,
don't know. It just was too much for me. He was trying too hard.
I actually thought there might have, and the show kind of touched on it a little bit, although obviously it didn't end up being the case. But I sort of thought there might have been a opportunity there for the house to. I thought Kevin played his hand very well, actually. But there was certainly an opportunity for a savvier player or a savvier bunch to realize that, oh, okay, like this guy's kind of switched on, and he's making everybody believe that he's a bit of a doofus, which is a great strategy. Like being vanilla, especially in the early point of the game, and now you have that badge of like, hey, I went on the block and I didn't ruffle any feathers. I think he leveraged his position really well. But there was an opportunity there to flip that on him. Seeing him running around being like, all right, like he got a little bit of information, and look at him just scurrying around. Like if someone's wise to that, I think there could have been an opportunity for a flip, and you saw it. There was at least 2 people that voted against him. So I'm very interested to watch Kevin play. I think he understands how to be a Big Brother character, which is a very important part of the show. Because if you're a good character, there's a really good chance that you will receive better opportunities to get FaceTime on the show, and not preferential treatment, so to speak, but like if you're going into Big Brother, there are so many levels to it that a viewer perhaps might not understand, because you're dealing with another player in there, and that player is Big Brother. Every time you go into the diary room, sure, on the show, you might get this little 4-second clip of like, oh yeah, let's go, do the comp, woo, whatever. But you're actually in there for like an hour, probably, having a pretty open dialogue. And if you really want to understand the way that Big Brother interacts with its house guests, I would recommend watching old seasons of Big Brother UK, because Big Brother in that show, actually, you can hear Big Brother interact with the house guests when they're in the diary room, and they'll ask them questions, and there's like a real-time back and forth. And Big Brother in Canada and the United States interacts with house guests in the exact same way. It's just not shown on the TV show. All you see is the little clip of kind of the soundbite version of their long conversation. And so someone like Kevin seems to be aware that if you become a personality in the DR, then you can get more TV time. Maybe that means you get a task. Maybe that means, you get the opportunity to do more things and have your face on the TV show, because that's being a good house guest is part of playing the game of Big Brother.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you on that. Let's start with actually diving into the episode just a little bit, because we get some interesting diary room sessions that I want to get your thoughts on. So we start with Herman going from celebrating outwardly, saying he doesn't want HOH, he wants HOH, to then is like, no, I didn't want that. And he's upset about it. And he's upset in the diary room. Moose is like, I'm safe and I don't have to nominate anybody. This is great. We see the wheel of names. And then Herman gets his room and is like, yeah, maybe I do want this, kind of. Where do you stand on the first HOH? Because it's obviously a big point of discussion for a lot of Big Brother fans and players alike.
I think that honestly, it depends on what type of player you are, but there's always value in having power, always. And especially in the early point of the game, if you have power, you can create connections and get influence. And if you play it correct, like it's very easy to bungle it and mess it up and let the power go to your head and become, like a tyrant. And, you walk around, thinking you're just all powerful, and you'll be power forever. You'll have
And then
power
you're the
forever.
second boot.
Right, exactly. This happens very frequently. I actually thought Armand played his HOH pretty well overall.
I agree with you.
He seems to have developed an alliance, and it seems, though he has probably created one enemy, I think he has come out of it with more allies than enemies, which is always what you want out of your HOH week. So yeah, I mean, I don't know that you can look at it like, you don't want to be center stage right off the bat, because then everyone's going to be looking at you. But the inverse of that is, if you're center stage right off the bat, everyone has to come to you.
Exactly.
And everyone has to try to either align with you or prevent themselves from being an enemy with you. And that gives you leverage, and that gives you ideally the most amount of important information in the house, because there's always kind of relevant information and irrelevant information in the game of like telephone tag that happens throughout the game. But Armand, because everyone's just learning how to play Big Brother this week, and he's in the power position, you have to come to him. Like, there's no way that you can't have a conversation with him throughout the week, which means that he should know all of the relevant information and how the lines of communication are working. He seems like a pretty smart guy. I was afraid that he was going to kind of pop and Paul it from Big Brother Canada season 2 and be like the Don and really overplay his hand. He didn't. I'm very happy with the way, and he should be happy, I think, with the way that his HOH went.
Yeah, I would say he should be happy with it from what we saw. Again, we saw nothing. Sure. But from what I did see, I was very, very pleased with it. I mean, he gets, like, we hear from Moose a lot in this episode, which also, whatever the names of these people, but all right. I'm going to have to say Moose seriously. But and I think we start to see Jess's downfall that they're trying to portray, because him and Jess are having a simple conversation about food. And he's saying Jess is a lot. One conversation with her, and it's like she's using all this big vocabulary, and I think it's the both of them not realizing that they have to like interact with people who aren't like them right away, and being in their own little head. Because to me, I feel like you have to so much in there, get to know the people you're with very quickly, and interact how they need to be interacted with.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. One of the things that I didn't even really realize going in, and it was pointed that, the best lesson about actually playing Big Brother that I learned while playing Big Brother was pointed out by Alec. And he said something to the effect of, you have to play to your cast. So one kind of generic default strategy might not work in every scenario, and it probably won't, because every Big Brother scenario, every Big Brother game is a completely different group of people.
Absolutely.
So you really have to look at the person directly that you're interacting with, feel their vibe, and try to give it back to them. Yeah, it's a very astute observation. And a lot of people struggle with that, because, often in your real life, you get grouped in with people who are like you. Maybe they're from school or work, and you kind of all talk the same, interact the same, or, some variation of the same thing. And then you enter this house with strangers from all over the country who have completely different experiences and perspectives and upbringings than you. And if you just go right into your kind of default mode how you would interact with your friends right off the gate, it might throw some people off. And so you almost have to come into it from a clean slate perspective of, you have to almost reinvent yourself every new conversation in the game, because the smallest thing, and especially in week 1, this is most true in week 1.
Absolutely.
The smallest thing, if you ruffle any feather, because everyone's just looking to survive. Nobody wants to be that first person out. And so the smallest thing can become the biggest catastrophe, just by having, being a little too forward, or, not interacting, or like, if you're too exuberant, or like and it's so wild, because I remember in the early days of season 1, Gary was just
a little too forward,
the most Gary you could possibly imagine. And then around like day 3 or 4, I remember Gary came out of the diary room one day, and then he was a different Gary, and he was so much more. I often say that Gary is one of the most underappreciated and undervalued, intelligent Big Brother players that we've ever seen. And if you don't know who Gary is, definitely go back to watch Big Brother Canada Season 1 and Big Brother Canada Season 5, because he's deceptively smart. And he realized very quickly that he can't be the star of the show and on 24/7. He has to interact with people. And then, and then we saw kind of the real Gary, not the performative Gary. And, he ended up becoming one of the most dangerous players in our game. So, yeah, you have to take the pulse on the house and just try to navigate it in a neutral, positive way in that first week, because everyone is looking for the smallest thing to send you out the door. Because if it's not, as long as it's not you, you're going to be good.
And that point right there is one of the reasons I love Big Brother so much, like in the way it starts, like compared to Survivor, for example. But also, it's reason right there is a reason why you want to be first to HOH and why you don't, depending on the group that you're with. Um, so we see Herman's HOH room, and he's talking about how he likes Moose and Josh so far, and then he starts listing out. Moose lists out 4 people right away that like aren't really talking to anybody, and it's like these people: Helena, Kevin, Melina, and Jess. And he's like, they're not interacting with anybody because Moose is saying, "What am I? What kind of player am I?" And Moose is a very outgoing, loud, social party animal. And he's like, "All right, who am I not going to vibe with? I already know I don't like Jess. I already know her and I don't. They or her and I do not click." And then I imagine probably his interactions with Helena, Kevin, and Mel and Melina were rather similar.
Mhm.
And good on him. Good on Moose using his likability, getting to Herman right away. I give him a ton of credit for that.
Yeah, I love Moose as a character and as a player so far. And you can tell that the show. So there's kind of in Survivor, there's a lot of paying attention to the edit. Of course, this is an infamous thing that hardcore Survivor viewers do. They pay strict attention to the edit and who's getting confessionals and how things are chopped up, because Survivor has the added advantage of knowing the totality of the story and being able to tell it because the season has concluded and they're working backwards. Big Brother, of course, is different because it's in real time.
Absolutely.
And, even though the episodes are produced, they can be produced, they're usually sending it in to the network the day of, kind of thing. So it's a much, much, much shorter turnaround. And so if you are, and this goes back to kind of what I was saying about Kevin in the diary room and knowing how to interact with the diary room. Moose clearly is a big presence in the house, and he gives good diary rooms, which means that the show, aka Big Brother, is going to show preference to him. And this is this is a strategy that whether he is aware of it or not, it's a very effective thing to do, especially in Big Brother Canada, because oftentimes in most seasons, the audience will have some kind of interaction. They'll vote on a twist, or they'll vote to save somebody, or give somebody a power, whatever. There's usually some kind of fan involvement, and I expect there'll be fan involvement this year because they're doing this like best of Big Brother kind of thing with old twists and competitions or updated versions of these types of things. So in Big Brother Canada history, there's been a lot of this that's happened. And if Moose is getting a lot of TV time and he's very engaging and likable and fun, chances are he's going to be the positive recipient or beneficiary of such a twist. So knowing how to play that level of a Big Brother game, whether he's aware of it or not, I think makes him certainly somebody to look out for as a dominant character as the season progresses.
So which past BB Can fan involvement twists that I hate are we getting back?
I don't know. It depends on what kind of twists you hate, I guess.
I hate really any twist that involves fan involvement. Just whichever one ruins the game more, I hate. So I don't know. What do you think we're getting this season? What do you which one are they going to pull from the well? Like,
well, so I mean, I guess it depends on what week they do it, because based on what we've seen so far, like we've gotten 2 twists from my season 1, and both of them literally happened on day 1 of season 1. So the phone rang probably a few hours after we were all in there. Suzette bolts for it, picks it up. She's first HOH.
yep.
And this season, same thing happened. And they all very slowly walked down the stairs. And Jay eventually picked up the phone, who was apparently good friends with Anil from my season.
Oh,
I
no
just
way.
yeah. So, yeah, small world in Canada, I suppose. But anyway, and then like a few hours after Suzette had answered the phone, we were in the backyard doing the Power Popper competition. And so we saw
quick,
2 things from Big Brother Canada season 1 in the first 2 episodes. So maybe in week 2, they'll do things from Big Brother Canada season 2. Maybe we'll see the Ica letter shredding thing. I don't know.
Oh, that
maybe
would be
we'll
fun.
see. I doubt, probably too early for Canada's HOH, which was from season 2. I don't know. But
you never know, though. I
maybe,
doubt it.
I don't know. They haven't announced it, so I mean, probably not. But,
yeah,
I mean, somewhere along the way, I think Canada will especially be involved. And I'm actually, I like the fan involvement, and I'll tell you why.
go for
Because the kind of original concept of Big Brother is, especially in the UK, it's all fan voting. You are either voting, the fans vote to evict or to save, depending on the season or sometimes depending on the week. So kind of the classic formula, if you will, the international formula, I suppose, as it's become now, is different than the North American format in Canada and the United States, the HOH veto format, in that, every house guest will go into the diary room and say, I want to vote person, or I want to nominate person A and person B. And then the X amount of house guests who get the most amount of nominations from their fellow housemates will be subject to the public vote. Mm-hmm. So the public, from a classic Big Brother perspective, has always been involved. And in the States, they used to do America's Choice and things of that nature. So I think if you go into Big Brother and you dismiss or you don't prepare for the inevitability that the fans will at some point or another be involved, you're not thinking about Big Brother correctly. Because especially in Canada, every year the fans have been involved. It's a classic part of Big Brother. And to if you're in there and I'm of the opinion that a twist can only negatively affect a player who is poorly positioned. So if you're a well-positioned player, a twist should never, it's very unlikely that a twist will negatively affect you. And so if there's a fan vote or a twist or something's coming in and you're a moose and you're well-connected and you're a fan favorite, probably not going to negatively affect you. If you're barely on the show and you don't have a lot of allies, it's more likely that it will negatively affect you. So being aware that, hey, Canada's watching and Big Brother are watching. It's not just the people that you're in that house with. That's what I say. There are levels to the game, and you have to be aware of all of it all the time. You have to be interacting with Big Brother in the right way. You have to realize that the public is watching, and you have to realize that everyone in the house is being scrutinizing your behavior all the time too. So there's a lot to keep in mind when you're in the Big Brother Canada house.
Okay. I agree with you that the players should be prepared for it. 100% agree with you on that. Does it mean I like it? No. I think because, and this is going to sound a little harsh, it's the casuals who are voting, who are making these decisions based on what they're seeing only on TV. If you had people watching the live feeds who had more of a say, I'd maybe be in with it, but I'm still not I'm typically not a fan of most twists, but I want things that give the players a choice, give them control.
Yep.
Like if it's a fan vote to just like save someone, a little boring. Fan vote to put someone on the block, boring. But like a fan vote to pick a player and make them decide something, I can deal with that a bit more. But for the most part, I'm with the way production can edit the show, and they do. It's just we're just screwing over the people that sometimes aren't as big characters, which I don't love. But regardless, I just
However, so I agree, and you are correct, but that's that individual's responsibility.
oh, I
Like
agree with you
a
to an
lot of
extent. To an
people,
extent,
no, I think entirely it is it because here's the thing for me, I was not an active presence on the feeds a lot. Like I was very um like mild mannered on the
yes.
feeds to
Hmm.
say like I didn't cause arguments or conflicts. A lot of my interactions are very civil and polite, and I was probably a boring feeds character, but I am prominently featured on the show for two reasons. One,
You're,
I know how to do entertaining television in the way that they want, and two, I was more often than not very, very aware of what was going on in the house to such a level that production understood that I could convey that information most effectively to the TV audience. And
yeah.
so you can be a boring feeds person. That's fine. And you don't have to be the flashiest player in the house. But if production understands that you know the lines of communication better than everyone else, and you know how the vote's going to go before everyone, and you know who's talking to who, and who said who to what, and so on and so forth, and you can convey that story effectively
Hmm.
to the viewing audience, Big Brother and Canada, you're going to get a lot more screen time, and that's going to increase your likelihood of being the benefit. So if you're just a lump on a log and death sleeping and laying in your bed and you're not interacting with people and you're not playing the games that people create and you're not doing the group things and the family meals and all this type, and if you're not paying attention to who's whispering to who's sitting beside who went off
Hmm.
when and for how long, these types of things,
Completely agree.
then you're doing yourself a disservice. You won't be able to communicate that to Big Brother. And then Big Brother's not going to ask you the question, and then you're not going to be on the episode. So I think it's within everyone's purview, and everyone has the power to make themselves as big of a character as they want on the show. You can control your own edit, you can control your own narrative if you are self aware enough and aware enough of the people in the game to be able to convey that to the viewing audience.
Yeah. I give you that, and that's a big part of it. There are sometimes, like I believe it was season 6, with Erica being taken out, which I don't love that, like things like that as much. I don't love it on returning seasons or even mixed returning seasons. Think of season 5, where right off the bat we're just gonna give Ned a safety tilt jury. Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't
the
like that
newbies
twist
had no
either.
shot in that instance, and like there are certain instances where I don't love it, others where I can tolerate it, as long as it doesn't hugely mess with the game, because at the end of the day, I want the players to sign the game.
Of
They are
course.
the ones who have to deal with limited information, and they're the ones who the good players who have to get that information,
Yep.
who have to be able to get that information, and whatever they perceive as reality is reality, not what America is seeing, which is just simply put reality.
Yeah.
So that's where I think you blur the lines a little bit. But
Yep.
regardless, I'm curious to see what'll happen. And obviously, I think Moose is a big contender for it early. Herman is as well, given the HOH that he has had and the character that he is. Um, but let's get back to Herman for a minute, because we're still not even at the noms, which took like 5 minutes. But he uh, Melina goes to Herman and says, "I have no connection with you. Let's try to change that." And then we just see like a montage of Herman doing speed dating, which good idea, I think. I think it's a really good idea to get everybody in and talk to them. Although then we had the force fed diary rooms of next, I don't like you, like whatever, fine. And I obviously, if we had a little bit more time in the episode, maybe we get to see how they go. Because all I got from him talking to everyone is that he likes Moose, he doesn't like Jess, and then Jess going with the fact that lions sleep 20 hours a day, which that's an instance where I think Jess needs to better read who she's talking to. Because
Mhm.
you tell me that information, I'm like, okay, I'm slightly interested in that. Maybe you're a little bit interested in that. Herman couldn't have cared less.
Yeah.
Could not have cared less. Um, and then I also wrote my notes after that. So Jess doesn't know how to talk to people, and Herman has way too many salesman metaphors. And then And then we just go poof. Oh, okay. Melina and Jess are up. Great. He says, Melina, we haven't had many deep combos. And then it's like, Jess, you're my target. You're a gamer. And then Jess, we get the infamous Melina quote of, the universe won't let me go first. No, the universe let that exactly happen. And then Jess is like, I have an enemy. Herman has an enemy in me, which I like it. And I'm excited that Jess is here for that vengeance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right off the bat, we have the developing rivalry storyline, and that's what you want to see. In an ideal, Big Brother irony scenario, you would have Jess win power and then have to, see if Herman can get himself, out of trouble, and that eye for eye mentality can, emerge very quickly in the house. So, yeah, I thought it was good to a degree that Herman clearly stated, okay, like these are the reasons why I'm putting up. They seem like authentic reasons, and he made his target clear. The drawback of that is when your target wins power and then you can't do anything about it, which was the unfortunate circumstance from his perspective that unfolded afterwards.
I also think it's like, I overall think his nomination choices were not bad choices. However, I think it's another instance of he doesn't know the people he's dealing with well enough, in that you say to Melina, you're my target in front of everyone. It seems like Melina might not have cared that much. And you tell Jess that they're a big target, and Jess is on a rampage, and I get why. Maybe if he flipped it, even if he doesn't mean it, I think would have probably helped this game immensely going into next week, because now he has to worry about Jess winning HOH and putting his head on a stake.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. There could have been a tremendous amount of value for him to kind of flip the script on that. It's kind of the same mistake that Jess made, I suppose, but in another circumstance. Like,
absolutely,
Jess used her conventional method of communication to Herman, and it didn't play. And right. And then Herman did this. It's kind of like the Adele El-Siri, like, I'm nominating you and you. He just put it on Front Street and was trying to be authentic about it, which is actually contrary to the sleazy salesman tactic thing. I don't know. Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point.
What's funny, I don't know if he's told everyone that he's a car salesman. And if he has, maybe that's a really good way of trying to counteract that stereotype. And if he hasn't, I think it's just good to portray himself as that direct player, because that seems like a role he can play. And that's an instance where I think he knows himself a little bit, where he can portray himself as like direct, but also nice and fun. And he's done that also relatively well.
I agree. There's also the potential drawback of, okay, if you're Herman's ally, or potential ally, and you know the truth that he's going after Jess, and if you watch him perfectly go up there and say, you know what, Melina, you're my target. Jess, we just kind of don't know each other. And you can watch him lie directly to someone's face in real time in front of a huge group. Your kind of game radar should be going off going, how well do I know this guy? Like, if he can do that to his enemies, can he do that to his allies too? Like, you start to maybe second guess him. You start to question him. If you see so blatantly that he can stand up there and perform a game action to people, and then later know that it's a swerve, know that it's a dupe, know that he's trying to pull the wool over somebody's eyes, maybe that could hurt him, in the short term as well, because now people are looking at him from a different perspective. If he's this stand-up, honest guy the whole way through, and then he's lying on his nominations for a game purpose, even though that might be a really savvy move, then you start to look at him in a different light, and maybe that screws him over. So there's always, 5,000 different ways to look at every possible interaction you have with people, because you got to consider it from 16 different perspectives.
I love that point, and I completely agree with you. And Herman interests me as a whole. I'm seeing in the comments that he said before the season that he was going to lie about his profession, which may be a good idea, and then say he's in finance, which is very dumb, and shows me that Herman does not know what he's doing. in that instance very much.
Just say that you work at a car dealership. Like, you could still be in the same. You don't have to own it. Yeah, I just work it. I'm a salesman. Like, I remember Greg Merritt from Big Brother Canada 3. He's like a pro baseball player, and he created this gigantic, overly complicated scenario in which he worked at Costco.
Oh, yeah.
And he was going to go in and tell everyone that he worked at Costco. And before he went to play, he would like go to Costco and talk to their managers and get all this information. And he was creating this whole new life that you have to like convince people is authentic the whole time. So you're always living a lie, even if it's a simple lie is like what you do. Just say that you're like, oh, I coach my kids' baseball team, or like I'm a manager at a baseball shop or whatever. Like, stay in your world. Just
absolutely.
Like devalue your position.
The only person I can think of in any Big Brother who did a good job of lying about their profession through their teeth was Derek Lohasser, saying he's a Parks and Rec coordinator. Everyone else slips at some point, unless you are so close to your role. And in most cases, just better to say, hey, you're not the boss at like whatever thing you do. You're just like the intern. You're the busboy. Like, at this point, just say, like, yeah, you can maybe even don't say you're a car salesman, because that gets off like dingy vibes. Maybe you just like, I don't know, you're a mechanic. I don't know. Say something involving cars.
Yeah.
Like you're a cashier there. Easy, something menial, boring, and easy.
Yep.
Like, curious, do you wish, like, how, if you got to play Big Brother again and people didn't know who you were, would you lie about your profession? And what would you say?
No, probably not. I mean, at the time when I did play, I worked for a YouTube company as a content curator. I said that like I was a YouTuber at the time. I thought it would give me leverage. People are like, oh, like maybe he can show me how to be a YouTuber afterwards, or something to that effect. And honestly, nobody really cared, sort of thing. Like, it was much more about, in my personal experience, it was much more about just me as a person than what my profession was. Now I'm a writer. If I were to go in, like if I went to play Survivor, I'd be like, yeah, I'm a writer. Like, I don't think that has such a specific, like, car salesman, as you said. Okay, I have a connotation of what a car salesman is. It's maybe not the most reputable job.
Oh, I think it was Brian Heidick. That's all I think.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That is literally what I think of.
But if you have kind of a generic job, I guess, but even like Alec. So Alec was a PhD student at the time for social psychology. Like, his job is studying, how people interact with one another.
Yep.
And he said that, on day one. So I think ultimately it comes down to the person. And the more you lie in there, the more you have to keep track of your lies.
Oh, 100%.
So the more honest you can be, or at least like if you divide the line between inauthentic and authentic, the closer you can be to authentic, the better off you're going to be, because you just have to worry about so much less than somebody going in there and being like, a complete fabrication. Because Big Brother is often kind of erroneously described as a game of lies, but it's more a game, I think, of cultivating the truth. Because sometimes you give 100% of the truth, sometimes you give 90% and 80%, and so on and so forth. But it's all about truth manipulation, not about outright lying to people, unless you absolutely need to in like key moments.
Absolutely, I'm so with you there, and I'm always really curious how players like try to lie about it, and you always see who's the super fan and who just saw the show and how they try to lie about their job if they do. And it's very, very interesting to me. And I'm like, I'm curious to see how it works. For example, in BB23, Xavier, the winner of the season, was a lawyer and says he's a bartender. Did it work? No, he got caught somewhat in the middle, but the way he played his game, it didn't hurt him as much. He was already really well liked and insulated, and people knew he had game player instincts, so it didn't kill him. That he lied about it was like, oh, that's funny. All right, move on.
Right.
But certain people, it's like, you lied about your job. Oh, everything I've thought about you is now a lie.
Right. If you're already skeptical about them, if you're already kind of giving them the side eye and like you're not really sure how much you trust them or how authentic they are, and then it comes out that, oh dang, like that they're, their dad actually owns a Fortune 500 company and they're super rich and or whatever. Then you're gonna be like, oh, all right, like the entirety of your personality is a charade. Like I can't trust you at all.
Like,
I'm gonna vote you out.
People need one thing to latch on to. One thing. It's, oh, you lied to me about this, then you probably lied to me about XYZ, and
Exactly.
so on. And it's so interesting. But once we get Melina and Jess on the block, we get Melina talking to herself, and then Kevin walks in the door. And good job acting here with Kevin about saying that he is not very good socially either, and it is very hard to connect in a large group of people. This is probably Kevin's best moment in the episode, I think. Although I think the diary room was definitely like overplayed. That's where I'm saying he was trying too hard.
Yeah, it was a nice moment to recognize that you have a vulnerable player on the outs, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know when the sentiment of the house is going to shift, or a power is going to be introduced, or there's a twist. The wrong person says the wrong thing at the right time, whatever.
Especially that early.
So for him to recognize that, okay, we've got a totally detached entity out here, extend the olive branch, give her a shoulder to cry on, like show her that she's got somebody else that's maybe feeling the same things that she is, whether it's true or only partially true. Doesn't matter. So I thought that was a really good awareness moment. Obviously, the show thought it was important because we didn't see anybody else doing that. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But at least for what we saw is that you've got one person who's going to go out of his way to at least give the black sheep of the house at the time of day to at least like show them some comfort and compassion. Because what often happens is once the kind of target is once everyone gets a sense of who the likely person is who's going to be evicted, who the main target is, they kind of become this outcast. And in your head, what you have to do is reframe them as the enemy. You have to other them, and you're not as likely to engage socially in a fun way with them, because then, oh, maybe you'll be attached to them, and then maybe the power structure in the house, whether you know about it or not, you have to assume that it's there. That power structure might look at you and be like, oh, well, maybe they're trying to flip it, or maybe they're close. That's their close ally. They got to go next. So once a person has been kind of outcast from the core social part of the house, the big group, interacting with that person can often be dangerous, but it does have its advantages too, because one conversation could lead to the next, and at anything, you can always flip it at any time. If you're persistent enough and the right things happen for you. Sometimes it can be very hard and you just run out of time, but like there are always those small little cracks. And for Kevin to at least be a real person in that moment, even though it was from a game, initiative, was, I think, nice to see.
I completely agree. And then the only other thing we get before the veto is our other nominee doing something. And Jess's intention here of trying to extend an olive branch to Herman, great idea. The execution I thought was horrible. Absolutely horrible. Yeah. Nothing about it was good. It was, oh, so why'd you put me up? And Herman starts to talk, and then Jess is immediately defensive and confrontive of, oh, he's like, well, you were a little bit not direct. What do you mean I wasn't direct?
Yeah.
In my head, I'm just like, no, Jess, no. You were proving exactly why he nominated you, and you were giving him more ammunition, and now you are saying you better win the veto or else.
Yeah, she kind of doubled down on her natural behavior patterns, probably. Absolutely. So, she got into trouble kind of by being herself and themselves, and then tried to reinforce that no, I'm a valuable person, and you should seem like trying so hard to convince Herman that Jess has value as Jess and not what Herman needs Jess to be is difficult. It's not. I don't love Jess's longevity for the game based on how they've been shown to interact so far. It's not like everyone has the opportunity to flip the script, slide into the background a little bit, and start to rebuild. This is, of course, very possible to do, but I don't know if Jess is going to have a super long life in the Big Brother Canada house this season.
Completely agree, but then again, you never know. And also with the first week, we didn't see much. But one thing that they cut in this episode that I did not mind was the picking players part for the veto. We can cut that every week. I couldn't care less. It is so overdone. It is so long. It is just picking chips or a ping pong ball out of a bag. No one needs to see it. I like that they put it on the website for people to watch. But regardless, we are also keeping the Big Brother Canada rule that's been for, what is it, 5 seasons now? I don't remember how many at this point.
That the HOH doesn't play? Yeah, so they introduced that in season 7. It was a twist, I believe, in week 1 or 2. So a few years, yeah. I agree that you probably don't need to do the show the player selection unless there's like a critical kind of like somebody needs to get picked or somebody really doesn't want somebody to get picked. If it's story relevant, then include it. If not, I agree. It doesn't need to be in the episode. The thing that I didn't like about the player selection this week is you had players that had earned safety either through the HOH competition or through the phone that were eligible to play. I didn't like that. Like if you already have earned safety and you're in no danger of going home and you're kind of just a vote, I don't think I don't know. I don't think they should have been able, because perhaps one of the nominees has a friend that's their only friend, and they need that person to get picked to play perhaps on their behalf and increase their odds of getting vetoed off the block. And then you've got people who are playing for nothing, like they're just enjoying the game to enjoy the game. I don't know. I didn't like, if you're going to give somebody safety, then you should withdraw them from eligibility to play in a competition that's so important. The veto is because only 5 people play in it.
I see both ends of it, but I am with you. I'd rather they do all or nothing. If you're going to say someone is safe, but you want to let them compete in the HOH because they're safe and maybe they're just going to mess with everything, okay, I can deal with that. But if you're going to say you can't be HOH, then I don't know why we're letting them have the veto. But the players we do get for this competition, we get Melina and Jess, who are nominees, and it took me a while to figure out who our 3 people were. But it ends up being Gino, Jay, who was already safe, and Helena. And then, of course, Moose is hosting it, which I feel like is going to be a recurring theme as long as they can, because Moose was a very good host. And we get your comp, Peter. We get Power Poppers 2.0, the very first comp in BB Can 1. The very simple pop balloons, it was green balls, and then do a puzzle. And did Tom Plant text you anything while watching this?
Let me check. Actually, I don't think Alec was texting me. But I don't think I got anything from Tom.
What did Alex say about it? What anyone?
He was very happy to see the Power Poppers comp return. When we saw that comp first night, I feel like I'm in the dining room. We walked into the backyard, and there's a big net on the ceiling, and then the balloons, once the comp started, just slowly fell down. There was no buzzer. We had our puzzle board, because in our version of it, we had to find puzzle pieces and then put the puzzle pieces to make like the veto symbol or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was so, like, I don't know, it felt so janky and budget, and we're wearing these ridiculous costumes and it's balloons, and this was the first competition in the history of Big Brother Canada. Like, it felt so quaint and small.
Yeah.
And then to see the 2.0 version of it, which is, so much lights, and they have to fill up things and they're running around. There's so many different shapes and sizes of balloons and things like that. You know, you could see the glow up. Like ours feels so diminutive by comparison, but it's like it is a tough comp because it's like the belt kind of lays high, like higher on your torso than you want it to. So normally you're thrusting kind of with your butt, but you kind of have to like thrust with your stomach almost to pop the balloons and then find your thing and put the puzzle together. An interesting little factoid.
Let's hear it.
About the Tom winning. So Tom was directly to my left, if I believe, or like one or two spaces over, but I'm pretty sure he was directly to my left. And I was trying to throw the competition, so I would find pieces and then be like, "Oh, it's not the right one," and then I just throw it back into the pile. Like I didn't want to win the first comp. But
did Tom
catch
that?
Well, no. Tom won. He completed his puzzle first, but his puzzle was done incorrectly.
Yeah,
which is not on the show. And then I have the correct piece. I have the piece that he needs in my hand. Now, at this point, we had already formed an alliance with the four guys, Quattro, myself, Alec, Emmett, and Tom. And because I had been throwing them wildly the whole time, as in the kind of confusion, I tossed the correct piece down at Tom's feet. Like just, these two pieces. Oh, look, Tom. Oh, I think you got the wrong one. It's right there. And then the comp restarted. Tom puts the right piece in and wins. And then that's kind of, you saw the conclusion of that on the show. Okay. But initially, he got it wrong. The comp was over, and then they realized that he got it wrong. And then I gave him the correct piece. So all he had to do was pretend to pick the last one up and put it in.
Oh, yeah.
So that immediately made an out. Like Tom knew that he could trust me because I pointed out that
you threw him the comp.
that I was giving the comp to him essentially, and then that reinforced our alliance that we had made earlier. So obviously that wasn't it was the very first night of Big Brother Canada ever. They did not have things perfected yet, obviously. So Tom won that competition, but he won it because he had aligned with the person who just happened to be directly beside him and gave him the piece that he needed to complete the puzzle because he had the wrong one upside down in his thing. So a little random piece of Big Brother Canada 1 history for you.
For those of you who ever play Big Brother, make sure you're aligned with the person next to you in any type of puzzle competition.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I didn't get much here from this comp. We get that JC Lynn finds Gino hot because who wouldn't? And then Jay is like trying to make a show, which good idea on Jay's part because Jay was safe. That's what I would hope to be doing. Like, I'm going to have fun with it. And Jay's played right into their personality and had fun with it. Didn't win. And then Jess won. And you see right there, Herman can't hide it. His head is exploding because he's going to have to nominate a third person. And somebody that is his target is now coming at him with a vengeance because they'll be in the game.
There is one issue, though, for Jay and kind of flagrantly just having fun with it. Because if you're, let's say if you're Josh or Marty and you're sitting on the sidelines and you really want to compete and, competitions are really important to you and you want to see somebody give 100% effort every time. And there's like you have to earn your place in the house every week, that kind of mentality, which a lot of players have. And then you see someone who's just kind of having a laugh, that might be like, this person's not taking it seriously. Or if you're one of the nominees and you're looking at it like, oh man, I'm fighting for my life here. And this person's just having they're just chuckling around being a goof. Like, all right, like, screw you, buddy. Like, maybe if I get in power, maybe that rubs me the wrong way. And then I might look at you and give you a second look. Like, you always, perception is reality in the house.
Yes.
Every moment that you're whether you're interacting with someone at the lunch table or you're in a competition, you have to kind of be aware of how you're behaving is going to impact the opinion of the people who are observing you. And so, yeah, there was lots of times where, like, especially the comp beasts of the season, there's so many times where they'll be looking at it and they'll come back and be like, oh man, like that was internally they're like, oh, that was a pathetic performance. Like, is that guy not even trying? Like, what? Like, this is a joke. Like, why are you treating this very serious thing like a joke? And it can really ruffle feathers the wrong way.
I completely agree with you there. I think for Jay, someone who has that personality, I think it's more excusable.
Sure.
But there is a line you have to draw of internally throwing it. I get, like, I applaud the throwing it, but you have to have some level of being able to hide it. Like, you have to, I would say, honestly, for the beginning, try. Maybe go a bit slower, but try. And then at that point, you're probably not winning anyway. And if you find you're about to win, start finding the wrong piece.
Exactly.
It's not that hard to throw a puzzle. It really isn't.
100%.
And you could throw it and blend in, and then the people who are nominated aren't mad at you because A, you're not beating them, and B, you're not making them look like fools. And everyone in the house will be like, okay, you competed, you didn't win, we move on. And also, you're not a big threat at that point. But all right. Right after the veto happens, all we have left is one little conversation, a very quick veto meeting, and basically the eviction. We have like a tiny bit of campaigning. I think this is a good point for us to take our commercial break, if that's good with you, Peter.
Yeah, of course.
All right. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
Lucy Nicotine is a company founded by Caltech scientists and former smokers looking for a better and cleaner nicotine alternative. Finally, tobacco alternatives that don't suck.
Researched and developed for 3 years to be made for people, not patients. Lucy has created a nicotine gum with 4 milligrams of nicotine that comes in 3 flavors: wintergreen, cinnamon, and pomegranate. Lucy also has a lozenge with 4 milligrams of nicotine in cherry ice flavor. Each and every flavor actually tastes great, and it's convenient and discreet. Products can be enjoyed anywhere, on flights, at work, on the go, or even in the gym.
I am so happy that Lucy is sponsoring us. Ever since they came on board, I have gotten no less than 5 of my friends transitioned over to Lucy and put their cigarettes down. They like the gum. I'm used to seeing the packages all around. This stuff is great, and it's really helping people make much healthier choices. So get on board and join the Lucy movement.
Hey, it's 2021. Get rid of your cigarettes, unplug your vape, throw out your dip, and get some Lucy nicotine gum or lozenges. This is the real deal. A subscription to Lucy comes directly to your door each month. It's so simple that you don't even have to leave your house because Lucy has delivery down.
Reality NSFW listeners, go to lucy.co and use promo code SURVIVOR to get 20% off all products, including gum or lozenges. That's lucy.co and use promo code SURVIVOR at checkout. Also, I have to give this disclaimer. Warning, this product contains nicotine derived from tobacco. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. That's lucy.co, and be sure to use that promo code SURVIVOR.
This episode of Reality NSFW is sponsored by Blue Chew. Say it with us, Blue Chew. Blue Chew is making waves and bringing more confidence to the bedroom by offering chewable tablets that can help men get stronger and longer lasting erections. That's right, we're giving away super hard dicks.
Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. Blue Chew's tablets help men achieve harder, stronger erections to combat all forms of ED.
Blue Chew is an online prescription service, so no visits to the doctor offices, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. And it ships right to your door in a discreet package. The process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. And the best part, it's all done online.
Blue Chew's licensed medical providers work with you to find the right ingredient and strength for your prescription. Don't like swallowing pills? No problem here. Blue Chew's sildenafil and tadalafil tablets are chewable. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and they prepare and ship direct, so it's cheaper than a pharmacy.
Hey, if you're looking to give that immunity idol to someone, or you don't want to be voted out of a crater, don't worry, Blue Chew's got you covered. So if you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information.
And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use promo code SURVIVOR at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's Blue Chew, BlueChew.com, promo code SURVIVOR to receive your first month free. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast.
We're all trying to eat better, but healthy breakfast doesn't have to be boring. Magic Spoon has the amazing flavors you love, but without all the bad stuff. And it's amazing as a midnight snack right before bed.
0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving. That's only 140 calories per serving.
It's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and low-carb. And build your own box. Available flavors to build your very own custom bundle are cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, blueberry, cinnamon, cookies and cream, and my favorite, maple waffle. Now, Magic Spoon recently brought back their 2 super popular flavors, cookies and cream and maple waffle. Thank goodness. But they're back permanently. And when these flavors were first introduced for a limited time, they sold out extremely quickly. Now, I'm here to let you know you can get them again or try them for the first time. Why? Because they're delicious and indulgent.
Johnny, Magic Spoon has so many great flavors that I really enjoy, and even my kids enjoy them. We have the cocoa, fruity frosted, peanut butter. All these are really great combinations. They enjoy waking up in the morning and getting some Magic Spoon right off to start their day great before they head off to school. I think everybody listening should give Magic Spoon a try, or if you've tried them already, it's time to reorder. Let's get you some more Magic Spoon and get your day started right.
Hey, when I finish a podcast late at night, the first thing I'm thinking is not sleep. It's let me grab a delicious bowl of Magic Spoon before I go to bed.
So go to magicspoon.com/survivor to grab a custom bundle of cereal and try it today. And be sure to use our promo code SURVIVOR at checkout to save $5 off your order. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to get your next delicious bowl of guilt-free cereal at magicspoon.com/survivor and use the code SURVIVOR to save $5 off. Thank you, Magic Spoon, for sponsoring this podcast.
All right, and we are back. So, Jess wins the veto. Herman is upset, and all we get is a segment about Stephanie who, oh, hi, Stephanie, nice to see you. That she just learned that there were oceans in Canada, but doesn't know which go where. And it was funny, but it was also like, this episode is already shortchanging everything, and this is what we're getting after veto when we know a nominee is coming down. Granted, if somebody won and we knew they weren't using it in 5 seconds, fine. But really, but also, Stephanie, come on. Come on. When Moose is the smart one educating you, oh, brother,
Well, one, it's a Moose segment, so obviously this, I think, is the theme of what we've been talking about so far. Is
correct.
That the show is going to show preference to the characters that it likes the most. But sometimes you have to remember that people in the house are often downplaying their intelligence and if Moose can be seen as teaching something to Steph, then he's going to be like, oh, I'm smarter than this person, and I can use her to my advantage, et cetera, et cetera. you see people like, oh, the feedsters will sometimes get mad, like, oh, this person lied to that person about this or whatever, and or something. It's like, well, yeah, or like they're being dishonest about something, or whatever it is, doesn't matter.
Oh my God, there's lying in Big Brother.
Right. You have to remember that, like, if I'm in a room with somebody that I need to lie to, or like, if I know that you absolutely don't like somebody, I'm going to trash talk them to you, because I know that now that's going to put us on the same wavelength, and you're going to trust me more because I have the same animus towards somebody that you do. So,
Anything
sometimes anything in common. Exactly.
Absolutely.
But a feedster might see that, they might come in late and they might just see me and you trash talking, Tom Plant. They're like, oh man. And then I go into the next room and I'm best buddies with them. Well, the authentic part is that I am best buddies with them, but I have to convince you that I'm not, to get on the same page as you. So I think feedsters get confused a lot of the time when they think they're seeing things from an omniscient perspective, but you have to remember that, players always have an objective. And the reason why I say this and bring this up is because I know Stephanie personally. I met her several years ago. I think just after the sideshow years, maybe. I know she's friends with Liza. She's friends with like several people in like the Toronto Big Brother circle. So Stephanie is someone who's going into this game with a tremendous amount of preseason, like firsthand advice from several people who have been through the experience. And I don't know the totality of the information that she's been given. Like, I haven't talked to her in, I don't know, since the pandemic probably, but for like a year or so, I was pretty good friends with her. And I know that she's a student of Big Brother. She loves Big Brother a lot. And she's really aware of the importance of like social maneuvering within the game. I'm not saying this is absolutely true, but there's a more than reasonable chance that Steph was, because she is a really smart person, like in my interactions with her. So there's a very good chance that she's just like, oh, I'm going to play the dumb blonde with the nice boobs and have this like life of the party guy think that he can help me. Because that's one-to-one direct communication, that you're creating a bond with somebody over something, and you're creating a narrative in the house. Oh, Steph's a ditz. Okay, I'm not going to take her seriously. But what she's doing is getting a lot of interaction with somebody who's very popular and has a lot of pull in the house and in the game. So like, you always have to like attempt to see things from as many perspectives as possible, and try to put yourself in the head of the person that you see in the scene, and try to figure out what their objective might be in that moment. It's very public. They're in the kitchen / dining room area. Everybody can see what's going on. And then you can start to develop, a perception of yourself in the game. And that might be something that she's focusing on. Maybe I'm giving her too much credit because I know her, but you always have to take a lot of things into consideration, especially in a game like Big Brother.
Absolutely. And where I was coming at was more so I'm annoyed at the editors for leaving that in.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
With what we had in this episode and the time we didn't have, that's my bigger gripe. I had a feeling Stephanie had to have playing that up a little bit, at least a little bit, and I hope a lot more, honestly. Although to me, I think that's something that is so basic, and it almost seems like you're dumbing yourself down too much.
Sure,
like it's almost,
yeah.
I'd have a hard time. I'm like, I'd be like, Stephanie, cut the crap. Cut it right now.
Right.
I know you know this.
Right.
Like, dumb yourself down completely. And I love that she's using her assets to her advantage. Although I do wish we saw in the intro more of her being a fan. So we don't think we got much of that. We just got, I'm just going to use my looks and my charm and pretend to be ditzy and all that, which good. But now knowing she's a fan, I think of her a little bit differently. I also know that she has game knowledge, which helps a lot. But I still think it's a little too far that she's like dumbing herself down this much. Because the minute she wants to have an intellectual conversation with somebody, her cover is blown. And I think if you're a player like that who's dumbing yourself down, I think you got to figure out a little like a line where you go where people think you're dumb and they're like, oh, you're funny and you're a bit of a ditz and I can tell you things. But the minute you need to have a conversation, you can at least have one. Maybe you don't pick up on everything as easily and you're not the one slinging names around, but you at least can be in the conversation. Whereas I think Steph is almost putting herself in a conversation where instead of ever being consulted on information, she's just told, and you're like, oh, Steph is useless. I'm just going to go tell her what's happening. And then at one point, Steph wants to make a move. And people are like, wait, this is not the stuff that I got to know.
Yeah, that's essentially the role that Tala occupied in my season. Like,
so many parallels. I love it.
Yeah. Tala wasn't with Tala, it was always who talked to her last and who talked to her in the most convincing. Like, she did, if it wasn't her, she didn't care. And you would just go to her and be like, Tala, this is about this week. Okay, cool. And then she would go on, and she was just a lunatic, making people laugh and, just being this little busy bee running around, endlessly entertaining. And yes, it would have like struck people as bizarre if suddenly Tala's coming to you and like, okay, look, here's the plan. We got to do this, got to do that, blah, blah, blah. This person's going, yada, yada, yada. It's like, whoa, mind blowing. You totally reframe it. So you're right. You absolutely have to find the line if that's where you want to play for Big Brother. Like, but maybe Steph thinks that Moose has a crush on her. Maybe he's been checking her out the side of his eye, and this is her way of like, allowing him to flirt with her kind of thing. There's always a bunch of options for sure.
Absolutely. And I'm really now curious to see how she handles this further. But the Tala comparison is very interesting. And I think Steph is a smarter version of Tala, at least give it from what I saw on the show of Tala, but we shall see. The only other thing we get is that Herman says he wants a pawn to go up because he's like, I don't want two people I nominated to stay in the game, which that would happen regardless, Herman. That's just how math works. However, I get what he means in that he doesn't want this person to really be a nominee that he wants, who ends up being Kevin, to just be a placeholder. But when he talks to Moose, the only people that he mentions are Kevin, and he mentions Gino, which I think would have been really interesting, even if he didn't want him to go home. Like, how would big, burly firefighter Gino, who everyone's checking out, how would he do on the block? I'm really curious to that.
Yeah, you really, it's trial by fire kind of thing. When you're on the block, you really got to show what kind of a gamer you are. It's a really hard position to be in. And not everybody takes it in a good way. Last year, Big Brother Canada, I remember Jed freaked out when even just his name was being mentioned in the early part of the game, because he was really in control of the house, thought he was like socially savvy and he's running things, and they call like a house meeting over people saying his name, and he was really like legitimately hot about it. So, if if Gino is maybe that type of player, and there's been no indication that he is that way so far, but if you think like, okay, I'm the cool guy, everyone likes me, I got this thing on lock, and then suddenly you're in this ultra vulnerable position sort of out of nowhere. Some people can react really, really negatively to that. So I thought that was an interesting thing that Moose brought up, because Gino, I think, is more than likely going to be a threat as the game progresses. It's more likely that he'll be a threat than he isn't in all likelihood. But so just to have that as a feeler out there early, again, it's just Moose is checking a lot of boxes, I think, so far.
It's very interesting, and Moose has to be very careful that Herman stays loyal to him even when things start getting bad, because
for sure
that bit could really help him. But if Herman decides I'm on the outs and I need to turn on anybody to stay in the game, who's he turning on? He's turning on Moose because Moose is giving him all this ammo. Gino, hey, Moose wanted you out first week. I saved you.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm really curious, and I hope Herman really talked to everybody and got a feeler of where everyone would stand if they're nominated, and then went at Kevin, which, jumping ahead, just pulls themselves off. Kevin goes on the block because, as Herman says, Kevin's not a threat. He won't go home. I want Melina to go home. And Kevin acts like he's not nervous. on the outside, which good on him.
Yep.
And what do you think of Herman's decision? Because overall, not knowing much about anybody else, I think he made a relatively good decision.
Yeah, it seems pretty safe. I think there would have been some value in the show, maybe giving us some clips of group happy fun time and Kevin maybe being in the background or not participating or something like that to give it a little bit more context. But it seems, by his own admission, he's at least trying to be, vanilla ice cream or whatever it was, vanilla pudding in the house. So if you've got somebody who's kind of neutrally likable but isn't going to make waves if they're on the block, it's probably pretty safe to put them there. The issue is if you are routinely viewed as that, like, you can become a block star real quick.
Oh, absolutely.
And though there is value in, like, I often say that Spencer Clausen played the block star position better than anybody else ever in Big Brother.
There is no one who's played it better.
Yeah, and he just super effective of managing that position, being nominated all the time. And I really think Spencer could have won Big Brother USA 15, even against Andy, if they were the final two. Obviously, Andy made the right move by taking Gina Marie. But anyway, in my season, AJ was the block star for a long time because he was regarded in that position of, well, everyone kind of likes him. He's fun to be around. And we know that we're going to keep him safe. He's literally just going up there to be the safest option. AJ played that really well for a while, but it did end up being his downfall. He was just on the block too much. And eventually it was like, all right, well, I guess he's got to go. If Kevin finds himself in that position, it could become very frustrating for him. If he's always on the bottom of the totem pole, even if he finds himself in alliance and they're always like, well, it's got to be you because you've been there before. Like, you know what it's like, and we know we're going to keep you safe. So if Kevin can come out of this leveraging some allies and some goodwill towards the power structure and, advance his position within the house, then he will have played the block properly. If he essentially comes out of it the same way that he came in, well, then he might find himself in that position more regularly than he would want.
I'm absolutely with you there. And this is why I want a longer episode for something like this, because this is one of the things that I am most interested in. Week 1 or week 2, like the first time a nominee has to be put up there, who is willing to be the pawn? I want to see who's willing to be it and who isn't, and how they handle that. Because that is one of those things where you need to be so delicate. Because if you give any kind of indication you're willing to be a pawn, you are probably then the pawn. If you are any bit hard in that you don't want to be the pawn, you may get thrown up there anyway. And if not, you're getting thrown up there as a target in a couple weeks, or even that week for that matter. And it's so interesting to me how you can play that, and someone being in that situation, how difficult is that to play?
There's kind of a weird thing that happens too, where, and maybe this will be Kevin's circumstance, where it's like, well, he already did it. We can't do that to him again. It's got to be somebody else's turn. You'd be like, all right, well, there's the target, and then it's got to be, this guy or this gal, because, or like this happens with slop a lot too. It's like, well, they already did it. They did it for 2 weeks. We can't do it to them again. We've got to give it to somebody else. And
let's
there's
give
a
it
bit
to
of
Gary.
strategy. Yeah, right. There's a bit of strategy of using that as like your kind of framing device for decision making. But it is kind of a sentiment that will sort of organically manifest itself in the house as well, where you look at somebody and it's like, they already did their time. Like Emmett was sort of like this in my season. He was up week 1 on the block against Kat, and then he kind of goes to the back of the line for like nominee potential because, well, he was already there. Like, everyone's going to touch the block. Everyone's going to, feel the hot seat sort of thing. And so sometimes there's value in being on the block week 1 and surviving, and you end up going to like near the end of the game more often than you don't. In fact, I was just talking to Mark Drellick from a Pretty Boy member from Big Brother Canada 7. And he and I were kind of going through like the early boots for Big Brother Canada, and like how they ended up, the early boot survivors from week 1 or week 2 and how they ended up placing in the game. And there were more people that placed deep in the game than did not. So, there is something to be said of kind of being up there, doing your time, having that badge of honor as someone who went on the block, and then people kind of forget about you. And that can sort of artificially extend your life in the game just because you've already been on the hot seat, so to speak. So I'm curious to see how Kevin's going to play this, because he's got the potential to catapult him at least to the mid game simply just by being in the position to be on the block in week 1.
Well, let me posit you one thing. I think the Emmett situation is interesting because who wins with HOH right after he survives the block? Was it Jill?
Week
It was Jillian,
2,
correct?
It was Jill. Yeah,
It was Jill, who ends up being his tightest ally in the whole game.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's a position where I think you can survive. The position that I think is pretty advantageous week 1 is being that nominee who gets taken off. That's the person that you can see can make a deep run in the game more often than not. But the person who's like renommed, I think, is more often than not the block star. You look at Steve Moses, for example, put on the block, wins veto, saves himself, and then you forget about him.
Yep.
And then he's able to go to sleep for a month.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Kevin wants to be able to do. But I don't know how great I feel about it, because I really think he could be a block star. And I also think Jess could be one as well. It's really, really interesting to see. I don't know. Do you think Kevin remains a block star? Does he go to the back of the line, as you said?
I think it's more possible if it's between the two of them, Jess and Kevin, that Jess becomes the block star, and for completely different reason. It's more of a targeted block star. Like, all right, like
we have to get you out.
Yeah, we you're it's, you can easily make the pitch that, well, look, we get Jess out and everyone else gets 1 week further. It's easy peasy. Like the next HOH just wants a kind of, simple, easy week. It's like, look, I'm going to do this for the whole house. I'm going to do everybody a favor. And we're going to get this one person out that everyone's kind of, a little edgy around and not quite mixing into the group.
Oh, that'd be my move.
Simple,
that'd
easy,
so
perfect.
Be my move. Especially, and I think being HOH, like the debate of being HOH week 1 is one that's there, and it's there for a good reason. I've gone more to the side recently of like it's a good thing, but it also depends on which type of player or in the type of game and the type of cast you're in. However, I think being HOH week 2 or 3, once you have allies, is a very good thing when there's a clear target that you can get out, and you are the one who's just doing the formality of sending them out the door. Like Derek Lavasser is one. He was HOH week 3, and he just did the nice and easy thing. Cody Calafiore in what was it, 22? Yes, it was week 1, but it was still like Keisha became that target for being in the house late, and it's like, all right, I'm doing the house a favor. And that being that person can give you so much leverage in the game. And I'm really curious to see who wins HOH next. I don't believe we have feeds at this point, so we can't even talk about it. Do they say we're getting feeds at midnight or no?
I don't think they gave a specific time. It's normally after the West Coast airing, which I believe is starting right now. So it's possible that they'll come out in an hour, or it's somewhere between an hour and 4 hours from now.
We hope. At least we hope that. Right. But you never know with BBCAN feeds. Yes, as it is 11 o'clock on the East Coast. All right. So the interesting part of the eviction discussion really happens between the two nominees themselves. I like Melina. I don't like the move from Melina, but I liked watching Melina and Kevin having their discussion. Melina's like, unprompted, Kevin, I like you, and I'm not going to use anything you say against you.
Yeah.
That's just the downfall, because then Melina, understandably, to an extent understandably, spills everything she has of, Herman and Musa are working together, and they've got Kyle and Gino, and then you add JC Lynn and Stephanie to that mix. And that is the right information to not say to the other nominee that you want to target.
Yeah. So it's tricky, because I know exactly why she did that, and I completely understand that position, because when a weird thing happens a lot when you're on the block, especially when there's a lot of people in the house. You sort of end up in the early stages of the game. You end up kind of becoming like bunk mates or bunker mates or whatever with the person that you're on the block with, because they're in the same position as you.
They're
you sort of have this freedom. Yeah, you're isolated from the house, the two of you. So there's this weird kind of like, you have a freedom to talk to them in a different way than you would talk to everybody else, because you feel like there's a closeness or a camaraderie, kinship, however you want to place it. So you end up kind of further isolating yourself even more in this like artificially created or like or imposed on you trust circle, because you're both in the same circumstance in the house. It does happen a lot. And unfortunately, like if Melina would have chosen to do this exact same conversation and like allow herself to feel comfortable enough to like express herself strategically, which we kind of saw with Tynesha later, but obviously to ill effect. But like if you get to that early, then maybe you can start to swing things. So the instinct was there, but she was so cocooned in fear from the to the rest of the house that the only person she felt comfortable with, like, putting that information out there was the person that she's in the same position with. So It does happen a lot. I know exactly why it happens. It's a weird thing. But Kevin, to his credit, played it exactly correctly.
I absolutely agree with you there. The thing is, to me, it reminds me like the two of them are almost in jail together, and they also know one of them have to go. So I know from that perspective, either I'm in the house and they're not, and then which case whatever I tell them means nothing, or vice versa, and I'm gone and my information means nothing anyway. However, that's if you are literally isolated in a jail and like you can't campaign.
Right.
Not realizing that and not realizing who it is that you're working with is really one of her big, I think, downfalls. And then we get the line from Kevin. Obviously, he can use it. And he said he would campaign against his own mother. And I have in my notes to ask you, would you campaign against your own mother? And I assume the answer is yes, without a question.
Of course. Would you campaign against your own mother when you're playing Monopoly? Would you steal Boardwalk and Park Place from them? Absolutely, you would. This is the same thing. It's just a different type of game.
Not everyone feels that way. Not everyone feels that way. I do. I would campaign against anybody. I don't care.
Yeah,
I want to win, and I know you're very much the same, and that's why we can get along so well. And that's also one reason I want to play Big Brother with you, and one reason I don't, because I know you'd cut me in a second. You'd be like, you would not care and cut me in a second.
Here's the weird thing, though. Look, man, so when I went so I live in Vancouver. Big Brother Canada is in Toronto. So in season 1, when I left, I didn't take my phone, because I was like, I'm not going to be friends with any of these people. Like, what do I need my phone for? I'm going to go in, going to be super cutthroat. I'm going to hate everybody. I'm a nihilist. I'm going to get out of there with $100,000 and never talk to these people again.
Yeah.
And the opposite, exactly the opposite of that happened. I walked in and I got a best friend that I still talk to every day. And like, I literally still talk to Alec and Emmett and Liza at least once a week, and most of them pretty much every day. Wow. And several other people from my season I touch base with pretty regularly as well, and then so on into the other seasons too. So like, I really loved my cat. It was way harder for me. Like, I ended up genuinely liking the people that I played with way more than I ever expected, to my own detriment within the game. Like, I ended up unexpectedly being like, wow, like I think these people might be my I think we're real friends. Maybe delusional, or not like at the time, maybe delusionally so, but like not so, because I'm still friends with them now. But like it was, I expected to be able to be ruthless and just cut everybody off and be like, no, you got to go when you got to go. And as the weeks went on, and I was like, oh man, like these are real people, and I'm developing real friendships with them. It became way, way harder to make those cutthroat decisions. And hats off to the people that can make them. Because like me not being a cutthroat, just like super robotic player that I would have wanted to be. And at home, I would have been rooting for the me type of person to be like that. You don't realize that, man, you are in there 24/7 with these people. And it's hard not to form genuine bonds. And you see that, like, you know, the Big Brother Canada groups, they tend to stick together in their own seasons. And then as part of the whole community, as I said, we're 155 now. And more often than not, we're together. So it's a really weird bonding thing that happens because, you know, think in your real life, if you're in school, okay, you're in that like, you know, whatever, 5-6 hours a day. And then, you know, maybe you chat at night or something like that, or at work, you're in for a shift or something. But in Big Brother, you are living with them all the time. So like your time spent with them is just so much more. You can develop a 5-year friendship in 2 weeks because, you know, you're spending all of those hours with the people, and the hours just build up so quickly, and you become so unusually attached to them for the most part. So to be that game bot and switch it off and be really cutthroat, it takes a really special kind of player to do that. And I'm always disappointed in myself that I wasn't able to. But I'm also like, all right, I went in there as like the I hate everybody guy, and I went out with a lot of really genuine long-term friendships. So like, you know, it's you always learn something about yourself through the Big Brother experience, I think.
Big Brother warmed the cold heart of Peter Brown, everybody.
It did. It really did.
It really did. Would the $100,000 sign in the backyard help you, Peter?
Probably would. Yeah. Looking at the prize, literally keeping your eye on the prize would help focus things for sure. Yeah, I think that would have helped frame it.
No, I'm with you. I'd campaign against my own mother, father, best friend, brother, sister. Sure. I don't have everything. I don't care. I am there to win the game. And then I say that, and I'm getting mushy over someone I met 5 minutes ago that they're my best friend for life. And maybe they would be, and maybe they wouldn't. But regardless, the only conversation we get that gives any indication that Kevin may have a shot of going home is between Tanisha and Melina, where they say, is Kevin acting? Probably he's probably acting. And the only thing I get out of that is Tanisha someone to watch out for. And I'm hoping she catches on to Kevin and like uses that to her advantage. Because if she has that information and does nothing with it, it's just information that she has. And all it is saying Kevin won't be your ally. But if she uses it right, she can strike, or at least put someone below her on the totem pole.
Definitely. She kind of was the self-professed, like she thinks she's going to end up being the mama bear sort of character or presence in the house. That's usually an unsuccessful character to be. Yeah. Like
absolutely.
They don't
win. They just don't.
They don't win. That character just for whatever reason doesn't seem to be particularly successful. I wouldn't see her in that light at all. I think she's young, hot, vibrant. Like, you know, I think she can definitely slide into the cool kids club, or should be able to pretty easily. I would think anyway, if I was in there with her. But if she kind of reverts back into that role as kind of the mom of the house, I don't know. You don't. Like if you're a gamer and you think of, if you self-identify as like a hardcore gamer, you're probably not going to take the mama bear character in the house super seriously. And that you can often find them as like a, well, just throw them up type thing. And then, the wrong person wins veto and you're gone. So hopefully she switched on, and hopefully she can be observant and find a little nest to, you know, have some allies, some genuine allies, and not find herself just kind of being on the other side of the house. But if she's at least aware enough to see this happening with Kevin early, depending on how obvious it was in the house to other people, you know, observation is very important. We've seen her being observant. So hopefully that's something that she can build off of as the weeks continue.
I completely agree. And I think it's such an interesting spot being that motherly figure, because you can be underestimated. But if you were the one who's taking advantage of that, and I thought we saw Tina doing that a little bit last season, although I would have liked to see her doing it a lot more they can be dangerous. They can absolutely be dangerous. And that's something where a lot of the really like good strategic game body players don't give enough stock to those players. And then
You never
those
see
are the
them
ones who
coming.
are cutting them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, they don't know strategy that well. Like, okay, they don't. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But their strategy is going to just dethrone you because you're looking for every way to circumvent them. And they are at the point of, nope, I'm just going to take the direct shot. I have it.
Like a quote good strategy in Big Brother is being a likable person. Like it's kind of as basic as that. If you are fun to be around and enjoyable company, and when you enter a room, you're like, oh, good, I get to talk to this person. That's good. Like that's a good Big Brother strategy. Like, people try to like overcomplicate it sometimes. And outthink themselves. But if you're just like a genuine person and people enjoy your company, they're gonna want to keep you around because you are playing a game, but you're also living with people too. Like you are coexisting in this box, very brightly lit box with them all day. And like if there's a lot of value in just feeling comfort in sitting on the couch and having a bite or having a laugh with somebody, even if you might not consider them a strategic threat, you should at least look at them as socially valuable.
Mm-hmm. You never want to underestimate anybody, especially not
never
the player right that it was typically underestimated, because then they can be your ally rather easily. And I hope if I ever play one of these games that like that is one of the people that I can take and scoop up very quickly.
For sure.
Because no one else is usually. But all right. We get to the vote because, of course, we need to play Big Brother on double speed, but we don't even get the fun of a double eviction with it. Just edited faster. Melina, her speech is she shouldn't be in the position, but hopes they play a good game, not an easy game. Okay, nothing. Kevin, I'm not on my comfort planet, and there are some of you. I've shown some of you that I can adapt, and I don't know why he said that like that. Too much. But regardless, we get the votes 11-2. It's 11-2 Melina. The 2 votes for her to stay were from Jess and Jay, which, again, I have no context of. So I can't say, why they did it, where Melina's campaigning went. I have no clue. None. And in the past seasons, I at least have a little bit of a clue where the vote is going. This, like, I knew the vote. Like, I had a feeling it was like 13-0, but I'm like, oh, okay, Jess voted for Kevin to stay. Oh, Jay did. Why? I don't know. Kevin to go, excuse me.
They're bad moves for both of them. So I know that the fandom sort of hates the unanimous vote thing, but
I get that. Yeah.
Let me explain later, at least maybe try to offer some insight. A lot of times, unanimous votes on the surface are not unanimous. So even though the vote itself is 13-0 or whatever, the actual game that's being played and trying to get votes in that, maybe it's 8-4, and then, man, if I could only just get that 1 or 2 more or whatever. But then those 4 people realizing smartly that they're on the wrong side of the vote, they're just gonna, it's not voting with the house, it's voting in your own best interest to not be an outlier. So if it's a legit, like, okay, I've got 6, you got 6, I gotta pull 1, you gotta pull 1, and it's that tight, okay, then it's silly to just vote quote with the house and have it be unanimous. If it legitimately is that close, where 1 vote either way is going to determine who goes. But if you're a few off and it's like, that you're in the minority, vote with the collective, because what's happened now is that you've got 2 people that voted, quote, against the house. If neither of them win HOH, whoever the HOH is, okay, 2 people voted against the house, they're the next 2 nominees. Like, it's so easy to do that. Like, that's such an easy argument to make, and everybody who's on the, quote, right side of the vote will understand that. and they will encourage it because it's not them, and they get 1 week forward in the game. So anytime you're electing consciously to stand out in a negative way, and the vote can do this, like I'll give an example of myself. In our double eviction where Tom and Liza went, obviously I was very close with Liza. I wanted her to stay, but I didn't vote for her because I knew nobody else was going to vote for her, and I didn't want to be the one,
especially pre-jury.
Especially pre-jury, to stand out and be like, oh, well, you know what? Like, a lot of people didn't like Liza. Pete was kind of attached to her. We knew he liked her. Maybe we got to get him. Like, he went against the grain. Don't go against the grain in pre-jury. Like, save those opportunities once you get into a position in which you can possibly like get yourself to the end of the game. Go along to get along in the early stages. So like, I would not be surprised if Jay and Jess find themselves on the block simply because it's like everyone's going to be able to figure out, I would assume, that it's those two who voted against the House. And so they would have put themselves in a much better position if they just would have gone along. Because maybe you have the sense like, they wanted to keep Melina, but they didn't go for it. They showed their loyalty to the House. Like, okay, maybe we forget about them a little bit. Like, you got to keep that stuff in mind. Like, the week 1 vote is not the time to go into business for yourself.
I completely agree with you. And also, Jess is already in a bad position. Exactly, Jess is in the worst position in the House.
Yep.
And I don't get it. It's almost like, all right, I think Jess maybe at a point, if my game is already in flames, let me just like have fun with it. Which is no, you don't want to do that. Your game is in flames right now, but put it out, not add another log to the fire.
Exactly.
All right, so we get the 11-2 vote. I noticed the music was just not well timed because Zarissa said something different. I don't know that they don't know how to play the music right, but
maybe, yeah.
Melina goes home regardless. And she hugs everyone, and then her only line as she's up the stairs, "You better wish I don't come back, okay?" She's not, as far as we know, not coming back. The whole Arissa
with COVID stuff, yeah.
No, I don't think so. You never know though. Arissa's interview is 5 seconds. Did you realize it'd be so hard to make bonds in here? When says like, no, wait, no, for me, yeah, and goes on of like, oh, I played hard and all that, and then Arissa's like, all right, that's enough. And when we come back, we'll talk about a secret door, and that's when my stream cut.
Oh no.
Due to copyright infringement, because I'm in the US and not supposed to be watching it.
Right.
What happened after the break? I would love if you could fill me in on that.
So basically, Arissa reveals that some weeks, but not all weeks, the surviving house guest that does not get evicted will have the opportunity to open one of the many doors in the Big Brother Canada 10 house.
God, love randomness.
Yeah. So Arissa reveals that 3 doors, which are right beside the diary room entrance, are eligible to be opened. And in one door has $500, one door has $2,500, and one door has $5,000. And so Kevin gets the opportunity to open one of the door. He gets to keep the prize. He opens door number 3, and it is $500. So he got the lowest possible total. But I think this is interesting. I like this.
Is it public?
Yeah, it's public. Yeah, he did it in front of everybody.
Okay.
I think obviously, some powers will be introduced this way, probably some twists, perhaps. I think it's a fun thing. I'm quite sure that she said only some weeks, which I don't like it. Like, you do it every week or don't do it every week.
I'm okay with I disagree with you, but okay.
The reason why I would say that is because, and the only reason I would say this is because the fan, let's say a popular character survives the block and then opens up a door and it's a 2-week safety. Miraculously, the fans will be like, oh, it's rigged. They gave that to this person, yada, yada, yada. And, it's random. Like, it didn't happen last week. It happened this week, whatever. Like, I'm just kind of thinking of negative reactions that might occur if, a favorable player gets a little too much favoritism kind of thing, or it seems like that. But if they do it consistently every week, then at least they know, that, it's always going to happen. And it is more naturally random, the door selection process, then, it might, because fans always have conspiracy theories about, oh, that comp was designed for this person, or, this person was supposed to find this power, or whatever. There are always conspiracy theories, but just to like avoid potential backlash online, I think if you do it all the time, you negate that possibility, I guess.
I get that. But so just to clarify, it's the person who survives the block that gets to open the door, which I think is going to be interesting of who you nominate in that spot then, because they may want a power or whatever. But I think you can have the argument of rigging regardless, the fake argument really, because you can say, what's the prize this week? Oh, why was this week's prize like safety and not $500, which doesn't impact the game, which I would rather them be more things of not impacting the game as much, but especially when it is random.
Definitely.
But I do like it that they now know, hey, whoever survives the block is going to get to open something and maybe be safe, maybe get money, whatever it is. I like that. And I also like that it's not, I could deal with it not being every other week, because if it's every week, it just gets boring. And we don't need a twist every week. That's just me.
I see that.
Yeah. All right. So Big Brother Canada is rocking and rolling. And now we will actually get a full normal week with feeds and with the game at somewhat normal speed, and that we get to see at somewhat normal speed. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday being the schedule. Peter, what final thoughts do you have on this episode, the 2 episodes we've had so far, and really overall?
Well, I like that Big Brother Canada is embracing its history. I love the fact that they're going to do kind of throwback comps and twists and things throughout the season. I think that's a great opportunity to kind of show love. We didn't even know if we were going to get a season 2 many moons ago, and here we are at 10. So to kind of give a little love to that, 10 years is really cool. The cast seems like a really fun group. I think it's going to be really interesting to see it play out over the next 10 weeks. I'm bummed that Melina is gone. I thought she maybe could have been a fun character. But hey, I mean, them's the breaks. Big Brother Canada is no joke. It is a hard game, and you got to play fast as soon as you walk through the door. So I'm excited to see how things unfold.
I completely agree. My one last question for you: who's winning this game? Who is your winner pick going in?
You know what? I got a weird dark horse love for Marty. I don't know. I feel
Lock
like
it in. Give me something.
Against type, so different from the Big Brother Canada winners that we've had in the past. I love his job. There was a guy, Big Brother UK one year, who was like a private eye kind of thing like that. His name was Dan something. I think it's Ryland's husband actually now. Anyway, and he was so good at Big Brother, and he basically got twisted out, and it sucked because like he was so good at Big Brother. But anyway, like if Marty can kind of be that like Derek, he's older than Derek, obviously, but like, and I know he's not a cop, but like, I don't know. He just plays to me kind of like an Andrew Monahan from my season. Like Andrew was so fun to be around. That's why he lasted so long. He was just a great housemate. He felt like an older brother kind of guy, like just a dude you can, go have a beer with or whatever. So like, I don't know. I feel like for whatever reason, and I know Raph from Big Brother UK also likes Marty. Just something about him strikes me as he could go against type. He's totally not a conventional winner, but you know what? Maybe he's going to find a way through. And of course, I like Moose. So those would be my 2 guys. Got to root for Steph because I know her. But those would be my 3 that I'm rooting for right now.
So your winner pick is Marty.
My winner pick's Marty. I'm going way off board.
Let's go.
I'm crazy.
Let's go,
Marty.
Peter Brown does not know what the hell he's talking about. We're 2 hours and 4 minutes into this, and everything you have said is out the window, and I give it no credibility because of that. But you know what? If Marty wins this game, I'd love to have you on the finale, and we will laugh it off. And when I come to Canada one day, I will buy you a beer or something.
Sounds great, man.
And if I get the winner pick right, then I want some payment.
You got it, brother.
All right, I am taking Josh, actually.
I like that pick. Yeah, I like that pick a lot.
When I watched the videos yesterday, when I'm looking at this, I'm like, no one is giving me really good at the game, because everyone was giving me a red flag of some guy. I'm too loud. I'm a party animal. I'm this. They don't really know the game that well. On and on. I'm like, okay, Josh, I haven't gotten any huge red flags. I'm going to go with you. So we'll see how it goes. But I do love Marty as a character. I hope Marty stays. But Marty wins this game. What a season we've had to get there.
It's wild, man. Like, that's it. Like, I think, look, everybody's got a win scenario.
Yes.
You're not in there unless production thinks that you have a path to the end. Now, some paths to the end are much more difficult than others.
Yes.
Some of them are next to impossible. But there is, you play the same group of 16 a million times in a simulator. Some people are going to win a higher percentage than others, obviously. But everyone's got a win scenario, depending on which Earth in the multiverse that we're in. Maybe we're in the Marty win multiverse Earth. Maybe you're in the Gino win multiverse. I don't know. But I'm hoping that we're in the Marty multiverse right now and to see this play out. But,
that would be hilarious.
Everyone's got a win trajectory in Big Brother, or at least I like to think so.
Oh, if Marty wins, oh, what a great world we are living in. And I will have not known what I've been watching the last 2 months if he does, because they already told us the finale is May 5th, which I like knowing right away. I'm like, I know when the finale is, I know what to look forward to. And that may be the next time we get to podcasts about this show. But regardless, we'll see. Can Marty do it? Who knows? Can Josh do it? I think there are bigger odds of that. But again, you also never know. All right. We've just started Big Brother Canada. I'm so excited to see where this season goes. And Reality NSFW has a lot going on coming around. First off, if you want to become a patron of Reality NSFW, do it at adfreensfw.com. You get so many cool exclusives. You get to be in a cool private Facebook group with links to international seasons of Survivor and Big Brother Canada. You can get exclusive Q&A with Johnny Fairplay and Matt Bischoff every week, and so much more. You can also buy a t-shirt that Johnny makes at johnnyfairplay.com. Every t-shirt will get a phone call with him. So if you ever want to talk to the man, the myth, the legend himself, Johnny Fairplay, for whatever reason, I don't know why you would, but there are reasons. You can get a
nice
t-shirt.
Guy. I like him.
No, I agree. I completely agree. You absolutely can. And for podcasting, next week, Brent Walgamot and Bobby Goodsby will be back on Wednesday at some point. I don't know when, because right after that, Survivor is back. American Survivor is back with season 42. That premieres Wednesday night. Johnny Fairplay will be in Louisville, Kentucky, doing some kind of premiere party with Matt Bischoff. So my good friend Alex Trias is going to be holding down the fort with some guests to be determined. And later that week, my other good friend Lauren Pratt and I will be back starting up the Survivor 42 Deep Dive podcast. We have some good guests in the works for that. And tomorrow afternoon at around noon Eastern, as it's currently scheduled, Johnny Fairplay, Lex Vandenberg, and Sarah Serrard will be back covering episodes 13 and 14 of Australian Survivor Blood versus Water. That is an incredible season. They just got to the merge, and there is a whole hell of a lot to talk about. So plenty of podcasts coming your way. Make sure you're subscribed on the YouTube channel over here and on your favorite podcatcher. If you want to follow Peter on Twitter, it is at also Peter Brown. I am at Alex M. Rubino. Peter, thank you so much for coming on. I did not expect this to go this long, but clearly you and I are both people who could talk about Big Brother for way too long. Yes. And for anybody who has listened, thank you so much and have a great night.
And for more Reality NSFW content, visit adfreeNSFW.com.